Hi, everyone. This is Jessica Mashkovich, and my guest today is Mindy Mayer, licensed certified social worker, National Academy of Social Workers, clinical psychotherapist, and coach. She is a trauma specialist that works with individuals, groups, families, and organizations, guiding people to live their best lives in happy and difficult times. Thank you, Mindy, for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me, Jess.
You and I have chatted by phone and a couple of times in between, and I thought it's very important to bring you on in a time like this, just to, talk to the audience, the listeners, the viewers about what's going on in our current day. A lot of people are stressing out in all different ways. Some people are not stressing out at all. Everyone is handling this whole pandemic through their own lens, and situations are quite different amongst each family and each person. There was something that I saw on Facebook that I'm just going to take a moment to read. It's a little lengthy, but I'll try and get through it very quickly, which is really going to talk about a lot of the situations that you and I are going to address. It was not written by me, but I did see it and shared it on Facebook. It starts out saying, I heard someone say that we're all in the same boat, but we're not. We're just in the same storm, not in the same boat. Your ship might be shipwrecked and mine might not, or vice versa. For some, quarantine is a moment of reflection and reconnection in flip-flops with coffee and cocktails. For others, it's a desperate financial and family crisis. For some that are alone are suffering endless loneliness, while others are having peace and rest time with their family. With $600 weekly increase in unemployment, some are bringing in more money in their household than they did while they were working. And others are working more hours for less pay due to loss in sales and job. Some families of four are receiving $3,400 in stimulus, while some families of four are receiving $0. Some were concerned about getting supplies for upcoming holidays, and others were concerned about getting enough bread, milk, and juice on the kitchen table for the weekend. Some want to go back to work because they don't qualify for employment, and others are just running out of money. Some people want to kill those that are breaking quarantine, and others are just protecting themselves even beyond what others might think necessary. Some people are spending 2 to 3 hours a day helping a child in school, while others are spending 2 to 3 hours a day to help their kids in school after a 12-hour workday themselves. Some have experienced near death of the virus or lost someone that they love, or are just unsure if a loved one might make it or not out of this. Others don't believe it's a big deal. Some have faith and expect miracles during 2020, and others just say that the worst is yet to come. So, friends, we're not all in the same boat. We're going through a time when our perceptions and needs are all completely different. Each of us may emerge in our own different way from the storm. It's very important to see beyond what is seen at first glance, not just looking, but actually seeing. So this really hit home to me when I was reading it, because you see people talking about the fact of what they're going through, what their kids are going through, graduation being postponed, or the prom not happening. And these are devastating things through the lens of a teenager. There's other devastating things, obviously, through the lens of a parent, depending upon what situation you're in. So being a specialist in your field, I'm sure all of these cases have walked through your doors in a virtual video.
Right, exactly. That's one of
exactly.
That's one of the first changes, is even the way in which we do therapy has changed. So can you imagine somebody going through whatever part of that boat that they're on, whatever their boat looks like, to use a metaphor of what you talked about, because that was very well said. That's what I'm seeing.
Right.
But the boat of therapy is different.
What does your day look like? And
Well,
are you seeing more patients more often that you wouldn't see for like a week or 2 weeks at a time?
Yes, I am. I am seeing, I've been seeing people from 7 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, with texts back and forth all day, and people really, it's anxiety. The one thing that we do have in common is anxiety. And
And they're anxious about what?
Anxiety can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But could you imagine seeking out therapy which has happened to me so much during this time, for the first time, and not walking into an office,
right,
with your whole life having just turned upside down, and you're talking to this person on Zoom, on FaceTime,
yep.
and you're trying to make that connection.
Well, I mean, I'm on FaceTime with you now, or Zoom, whatever it is, and I feel like I can tell you anything. So the comfort level is rather immediate, at least to me. It's probably even more so because I have a little bit of a protective bubble around me in my home, in order to be able to be completely candid and frank and open and honest and authentic with you, as opposed to sitting maybe in your chair and looking around, maybe getting distracted at some of the, the office tchotchkes that might be around.
So just to let you know, I'm a minimalist, and there's no tchotchkes in my office. I wanted to get that in there.
No.
But I hear what you're saying. For example, yesterday I met with a gentleman that I have only started working with since the coronavirus, and we have found ourselves in this pandemic. He suffers ordinarily from extreme anxiety. He lost his job. His wife is working. She's hurt, physically hurt, so she should not really be working, but she has to work financially. And his 2 kids are screaming in the background, and he's trying to have therapy.
Right.
And he was anxious to just get on the phone with me. He won't even do FaceTime.
Okay.
He would just, get on the phone. So I think, we have to really, as a society, and just to throw in there that May happens to be Mental Health Awareness Month, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So I think we have to really take a look at each person, and just like you read in that eloquent writing before, everybody is in a different place, and we really getting angry at people because they're not wearing a mask, or being angry at people because they're taking it too seriously and they're not letting you see. I haven't seen my grandchild in I don't know how long, but I get it.
Right.
I get it. I think that one of the things that could help us out here during this terrible pandemic is that we accept each other where we are and show a little kindness to each other.
Yes. Yes. And that's true when you're interacting outside with people or checking in on someone. But how do you deal with yourself when you're sitting there and you don't want to crumble, and you're putting up a big front for your kids? Because I think it's important that people show their children that we will get through this, and they show kids how to get through unfavorable times. It's a good role. Then you go in your room and you're by yourself and you're sort of crumbling. You're like, how are we going to do this? Here's my issues. And how do you advise people, like, once that starts to cave in on them, that feeling?
So there's two parts of that I want to address. One is that I am a firm believer, having worked in this field for more years than I care to remember. Kids pick up on everything, especially their parents' feelings.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what age they are, they pick up on it. So to answer your question, the first thing is that I really think we need to spend time with our kids, letting them know, letting them know that it's okay to feel whatever it is they're feeling.
Yes.
The general rule with children always is that it's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling, because they're feeling it anyway.
Right.
So I'm a big proponent of allowing parents to let their kids feel whatever it is that they feel. At the same time, I also believe that it's okay for kids to see their parents anxious. Falling apart, not so good.
Right.
So when you say you go into that room and you have these private moments, we as adults need those private moments. But the concept that we're really talking about is resiliency.
Yes.
How do we teach our children resiliency? Many of us as adults were not taught how to be resilient. Many of us were. Some of us have had lives that have led us to have to be resilient. The one thing is that in our lifetime, at least, I don't think anybody has ever experienced anything to this magnitude. So I think that it's okay to go into your room when your children are not around and to lose your shit.
Yep.
Am I allowed to say that?
Yes.
Okay. I say that in my therapy sessions too.
Good.
Because this is very authentic, real stuff. And I think that what we're going through right now is as real as it gets.
Yes. Do you think that losing your shit should be a contained moment? For example, even in business, when things weren't working out, I used to give myself only a short time, it could be an hour or two, to have a pity party.
Yep.
And once that's done, my goal is to move on because I've already exceeded my time limit for the pity party. Not to say that this pity party is trivial or anything. It's devastating. It could be the smallest thing or the largest thing, but you need to kind of encapsulate that, have your feeling, and then move on. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And that brings up this concept of the difference between suffering and struggling. I know, and I want to give respect and sincere acknowledgement to people who have lost people and people who have been very ill and people who don't know where their next meal are coming from. Like you said before, everybody is really feeling this in a different way. So everybody's pity party is going to look a little bit different.
Right.
I would encourage people to start to reframe that and start to think about, can I give myself permission to struggle rather than suffer? The suffering is going to
Very
come
good point.
naturally. The suffering is here. Like it or not, it's here. Do we want to embrace that, or do we want to embrace the struggle and then incorporate resiliency into that? And that's a very, very important message. You know, in our field especially, we throw around this term self-care. Well, to me, it's taken on a whole nother level. What I'm hearing from my clients, I had a session this morning with another woman, avid workout person, avid eater, you know, she's a very healthy eater. That's all, she's thrown that all away. And I could tell as soon as I heard her voice. I said, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Well, I'm eating crap and I'm not exercising. And I said, and that's helping you how?
What'd she say to that?
She laughed because we have a long-standing relationship and she knows that I'm very direct. And she said, it's not helping me. I said, okay, so when we get off our session, what are you going to do? And she said, I'm going out for a run and I'm going to the supermarket and I'm going to get myself my healthy food.
And did she say that to you last week as well? And she just lapsed back into...
Last week, she was really in a pity party. And for some reason, you know, when you do this kind of work, you want to use positive psychology and positive energy, but you also have to really meet a person where they're at. This week, I knew she was ready to hear that.
Okay. Yeah. And for people to even speak it out loud is part of the journey of, you know, recovery and saying what they're going to do. It's the same with I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to stop eating. And it doesn't always work out, but at least your verbal commitment aloud gets you, and especially to another person, committing that to another person. It gets you a little bit more on the way. So yeah.
It's like, it's kind of like, therapy has become, for now, has become a little bit more, it always is, but to a higher degree now, it's kind of, my cousin actually came up with this term and I like it a lot. She's in a similar field. It's an accountability buddy.
Yes.
You kind of have to have an accountability buddy. Like, how long are you going to let somebody lay in the bed and feel sorry for them?
Right.
Not helpful.
Yep.
When we're talking about loss, heavy loss and illness and fear that, our frontline workers, I mean, they're entitled to feel whatever it is they need to feel. Yet I find them, because I do work with some of them, I find them to be some of the strongest people.
Do you
I
feel that
guess
because they're making a difference? Do you feel
that's
that
exactly
because
right.
they're having a purpose out there?
Exactly right. So, which leads me in, thank you, Jess, because that was a great thing to lead me into. Now's a great time to find a purpose. It doesn't have to be a long-term purpose.
Right.
I think this is so big. We're talking about, we're going to have a vaccine in this amount of months, and we're going to have the schools back, and businesses are going to be open, and then in 3 seconds later, we hear something else. So we really don't know. And that is the epitome of anxiety, feeling out of control. We have these so-called experts who are telling us things. They don't know if it's right.
Right.
It could change 5 or 6 times in the course of an hour. So I think even if you wake up every day and my purpose for today is.
Yep.
And
what would some good examples be for people? Finish that thought, because
okay.
I know it's probably going to be personalized to each purpose, to each person.
Yes.
But if you were to lay out 5, examples of how to feel purposeful.
Okay, so purposeful could be today, from the deepest, darkest place. Today, I'm going to get out of bed and take a shower, and I'm going to get dressed. I had one client say to me, what's the rule on how many times you could wear the same workout pants during the pandemic?
Okay.
I said, I don't think there's a rule. I think you need to get dressed every day.
Right. And when you say workout pants, they weren't working out in those pants.
No, they were not working out.
Right.
They were just like living in those pants. Right. But the comfy, stretchy kind of pants I was talking about.
So yes, that might certainly be an accomplishment to get out of
Right.
bed and shower. But so how do you feel purposeful after that, besides for just?
Well, for somebody who can't get out of bed, getting out of bed and getting showered and dressed, they feel purposeful.
Okay,
They
even
feel
to their own
they
self.
accomplished.
Yeah.
They weren't able to do it the day before. They did it that day. That's a big deal.
Okay.
For other people, when can I open up my business? When can I go back to my business? Okay, your purpose for today is to sit down and write a plan and maybe speak to some of your buddies who are in business, or some coaches, or perhaps your therapist, and try to come up with a plan. And that could be your purpose for the day. Today, I'm going to sit down and come up what my new business plan looks like.
Right.
I mean, we can't go on staying in our houses. I'm all for quarantine, don't get me wrong. But I think there's a reality to life as well.
Right.
And taking your kid out to the park.
Yes.
Don't
even writing messages on your driveway in chalk or on the sidewalk. I've walked past a lot of driveways that have all these kid messages, and it's nice because they're doing a craft and they're doing it in a positive way, and maybe their mom or dad are out there with them doing it, or their older sibling, and it does have a purpose because people walk by it, they'll mention it, they'll take a picture of it, they'll post it on Facebook. It created nice feelings for someone else. That's
absolutely. And the people who have the energy, I always ask myself, and I always ask the people I work with, you get to choose how you use your energy. You go, just as a metaphor, you fill up your car with gas. where are you going to use, how are you going to use that gas? Are you going to go shopping and indulge yourself, which is perfectly fine? Or are you going to go take care of some business that you have to take care of? But at some point, that tank is going to be on E,
Right.
right? So I think to wake up every day, this is a purpose, to wake up every day and say, how am I going to use my energy today? What am I going to invest it in? Am
Yes.
I going to connect with, I know I'm hearing a lot of people, my clients are telling me they're connecting with people from the past.
That's
There's
nice.
a lot of Zooming going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of old connections being made, a lot of new connections being made. There's all kinds of groups that
Right.
have been started. If you go online, you'll find all kinds of groups. How do I deal with my 2-year-old when I'm not meant to be a stay-at-home mom all day? There's all kinds of groups. So your purpose of the day, I could give you 105 examples, but you have to respect where you're at. You
Right.
have to respect where you're at.
Yes.
But we want to be careful that we don't have a whole lot of depressed people who can't function.
Right. Right.
That that's what I'm looking out for. So to me, a person who couldn't get dressed and out of bed and showered, and the next time I speak to them, they can. That's awesome.
Yep. And how do you deal with someone like that? So you're speaking with someone who's not able to get out of bed. Would you handle it in a pharmacological way, or would you, offer them, do this set of exercises and then report back to me tomorrow morning, or let me know by the end of the day when you've completed it, or meditation? How do you handle someone that has slumped in to that rut and looks like they're not able to get out of it themselves at that point? Because this is, again, like whatever people are feeling for whatever reason they're feeling, not everyone has that resiliency
Mhm.
and that pick themselves up by their bootstraps.
Mhm.
And how do you, what's your power, what's your superpower as a as the person they turn to help them get out of that?
My superpower is my connection, my authentic connection that I have with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And how do you guide them to get out of that rut?
so that the fact that I have that superpower, I feel inside of me, I'm very dedicated to what I do, and I feel that the connection that I have with these people is something very, very special. It's not like talking to a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a sense of trust that I build up with people. So, their partner or friend could have told them the same thing and they wouldn't listen.
Right.
And I tell them the same thing because last week I said, okay, you can't do it. That's okay. We're going to text and we're going to check in with each other, and I'm going to make sure that you're okay. And then next week we're going to shoot for this, or in 2 days we're going to shoot. I'm doing a lot more check-ins now
Okay.
and waiting from one week to the next. To get back to your question about medication, I firmly believe and have always believed that there is a role in the work that I do for medication. I always try to use that as a last resort.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I am encouraging more clients now to go on medication
Mm-hmm.
because I do think that they need that boost.
Yeah, some are using it. Some professionals are using it as a bridge, just as a
Right.
bridge to have people walk over and then get the feeling back in their body of self.
Yeah. So, for example, I'm working with a woman who has had a history of being on and off meds, and she happened to have, before this pandemic, been off her meds.
Mm-hmm.
Bad timing.
Right.
So I was able to connect her to a psychiatrist who was, doing telehealth counseling. And I checked in. Her appointment was this week. I checked in with her. She was very happy
Mm-hmm.
um, that and that was it took about 3 weeks of us talking together to get her to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I texted her multiple times every day,
Mhm.
and I told her that I was going to I knew what time her appointment was, and I was going to check in with her afterwards,
Right.
accountability. And she did get her meds, and she told me just the fact that she made the call, because clearly in a
Mhm.
day or two the meds are not making a difference yet.
Right.
But she's feeling really good, and I have an appointment later on in the day to check in with her.
That's good.
So,
And then after, I'm sure you'll take her to the next level of feeling good,
right,
exercise, diet, what have you, meditation.
right. And this particular woman happens to be somebody who loves gardening. So
Mhm.
I told her, if it's raining outside, pretend you're in the shower. Go outside and garden.
Right.
Where's
Just
the
to
rule
get
that
her
says,
into that scenario.
yes,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
We have to find our little happy place for at least part of the day. And I implore people.
Hmm.
I don't know that this is therapeutic advice. This might be my own stuff, but I implore people to not sit in front of the TV and watch the news all day.
Yes, the news is a big no-no.
Yeah.
Um, I can recommend a lot of other shows on Netflix or Prime or Hulu as
Or
opposed
your podcasts, for example.
or my podcast. Yay.
What a
This is
novel idea.
this has kind of been my therapy of just, chatting with people. It's not something I've done before. I always had, the nervousness of getting in front of the camera and doing this. But this
Well,
is kind of my
I would never know that. I would never know that.
thank you.
You look right at home.
Thank you. I'm trying to, make myself pretend to feel like I've been doing this for years. But
Well,
um,
there is something called the act as if principle.
yes,
And the act as
I
if,
actually used that when I started my business, the act as if, pretend like you are someone who is of the level of confidence and charisma that you want to be. And, it is like an exercise in acting and just embody that character.
and 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 the thing is that in the beginning it is acting, but then you channel it and it becomes, because I'm all about authenticity.
Hmm.
If you could have acted as if, and if it wasn't meant for you, it wouldn't have taken off.
Right, right.
So you act as if, and then when you feel the synchronicity of it,
Hmm.
and you feel that everything's coming together and it feels authentic to you,
Yes. And that's
it's
good advice also for the current time because people, even if you're falling apart, act as if you're not and show a strong face, show a strong front, and your body may respond accordingly. You might feel better inside. It's almost the like the physical act of smiling, even when you're not happy or laughing, that generates the muscles and the everything generates a certain sort of endorphins on the inside of you, and all of a sudden you're feeling happy just because you forced your muscles to go into that pattern. So
right.
yeah, act as if
Absolutely.
it's
And let's
actually a good
remember that the
practice.
brain is a muscle.
Hmm.
So the
Well,
brain can be manipulated. And
the brain is fat.
is what?
The brain is fat and electrodes.
Well, I refer to the brain as a muscle.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay, thank you. For behavioral purposes, because every message that gets sent down to your body, even if you have a pain in your knee's not telling you that it hurts, your brain is telling you that it hurts, and your
Yeah,
central nervous system is telling you that it hurts.
right.
So throw
Yes.
out the science books right now, because they're really not helping us much right now anyway.
That's true.
And um, I'm a firm believer that basic behavior modification, we can change the input and therefore get a different output.
Yes.
And I really do believe that. So I use meditation in my practice. I mostly use guided meditation,
Hmm.
especially now because I'm finding that people are having a harder time settling into their body,
Hmm.
which is a very important thing for everybody to be practicing right now. Being in touch with your body,
Okay.
um, how your body's feeling, do a check-in. I do this myself every day when I wake up, all throughout the day.
Hmm.
My head, where's my neck, where are my muscles? I'll do this in my sessions
Mm-hmm.
with, with people. We put on, relaxing Zen music, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of get into the flow. And I do a guided meditation, and we walk through a place that might feel better than the place we're in right now.
That's good.
And
And it does take a little work to get people to that level of relaxation. I have to admit, I am not good at getting to that place. Just
well, you
for
might
me.
want to try guided meditation, which is
Yep.
where you don't have to sit there and think, oh, am I the only one here who can't get quiet and get
Mm-hmm.
still? When we're doing guided meditation, it's not this idea that I just have to still myself and be quiet. And that just puts more pressure on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm a big believer in guided meditation, because your mind is actually, for an example, sometimes I'll take somebody to a garden that they used to love when they were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
They used to go there with their grandparent, and there were purple flowers there, and,
Right.
just guide them in there and take something out of it back.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly cannot think of a time when somebody didn't get something out of that.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine. I mean, if you're able to relax and have happy thoughts, that's definitely a journey people want to be on. So how do you deal with someone who is coming to you again in the, we talked about anxiety, but the all out panic, hopelessness, calls you and basically says, my husband's out of work, my kid is missing their graduation, we have zero money, and I'm hopeless at this point in time. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm not computer literate, and I just don't know if this world will ever be normal again. I mean, people have turned to suicide. People have turned to wife beating or
Mm.
husband beating or child beating. And the way that people are letting out their emotions of hopelessness and desperation are very, very different across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're quarantined, it's not easy for a battered wife to leave their house and go to a shelter.
Right.
It
So
never
you have,
was, but now it's even more so, more difficult. How do you deal with these, very intense, desperate, hopeless, violent, sometimes violent situations?
so you're absolutely correct
Because I
about,
don't think meditation is going to help that part.
no, definitely not.
Right.
Although at some point it might. But so I am dealing with some situations like that right now. And it's something that I call holding space, which may sound a little hokey, but a lot of people don't have anybody in their lives to hold any space for them, to listen to them without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody who's living in a situation, who doesn't have any money coming in, who has children, um, who doesn't know what's coming next, I kind of give them a framework.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an understanding of what's going on. Otherwise, it's so big that hopelessness can, God forbid, turn into suicide, which we are seeing the suicide rates go up. Unfortunately, we've experienced it in the community that I work in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a framework of what I try to teach people about, which is trauma. And there's trauma, and there's something called vicarious trauma, that even the people who are not as in such hopeless places are feeling vicarious trauma because they see all this other suffering. For those
Right.
people, I say, do what you can to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
For the people who are truly feeling hopeless, we try to hold space for them, to let them talk it through.
Okay. And
Um,
what if talking doesn't get them that happy feeling or fulfilling feeling or change their current environment around them after the 45-minute talk session? What do you, I think you and I, in a previous conversation, you mentioned literally just leaving the room
yeah. So
of a confrontation. and going to a different room. I mean, physically uplifting yourself. And these solutions seem obvious, but don't stay in it. Don't stay in the thick of the fight if there's a fight going on in a hostile environment, you know.
So that's part of the reasons that we're also doing more check-ins now. So, for example, what we know with the brain is if we can change as many of the 5 senses, you know, smell. I always leave one out, so you're going to have to help
Smell,
me here.
sight,
Smell, sight, taste,
touch,
hearing,
hearing.
and sensory, right? So the best thing we can do when you're in that hopeless place is, and sometimes we do this during session, is take your device and go outside. Going outside is the best way to change as many senses as possible in the least amount, with the least amount of effort. So the brain waves and the secretions that are coming down from, whether you think the brain is fat or I think it's a muscle for my purposes, it's secreting stuff. And when you change what it's taking in, you're already in a different place.
Yes,
So
I agree.
what we try to do is to get somebody who's feeling hopeless from hopeless to baseline. I'm not trying to get people to be happy. Some people are not happy. Don't be happy if you're not happy.
Right.
I'm not in the act as if is one tool for people who are at a certain place, but for people who are really down that rabbit hole, being able to breathe and get grounded.
Yeah. Like you don't mean this figuratively. You mean this fully. Breathe, like literally breathe. Go outside.
Breathing. We do breathing exercises. I do, just to give you a quick one, we do a 4-3-7, I call it. Where you breathe in for 4, so it's hold for 3 and let go for 7. And you close your eyes when you do that. And that is not easy. People think breathing is what you and I are doing right now. But breathing from your body and breathing from your soul.
Yes.
And really getting in touch with that is something that really, really can get somebody from that hopeless place to a less hopeless place.
Yes. And it's not going to change the fact that $0 is coming into the house. It's not going to change the fact that your kid is not going to have a prom. It's not going to change all that's around you, but you have to also realize that I guess you yourself are powerless to change those types of things that are happening around you. Your goal is to cope with the emotions that you're feeling, and hopelessness and desperation are things that you, I guess, yourself have to grasp onto and manage to endure, you know, just to get through this time, because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Is, you know, like, it sounds like it's a positive way of thinking, but life does move on, and there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what sort of you know, environment you're going to open yourself up to once you reach that end of the tunnel, but it may be a different normal, it may be a similar normal, but you just have to endure that journey in order to get there and cope through these things. So breathing and meditation, talk therapy, sometimes medication, feeling of purposefulness.
Yep, waking up every day and saying to yourself, what is my purpose for today?
Yep.
I have people who have started cooking. I myself, who would have thunk this? Nobody who knows me would have ever said, yeah, at this stage of life, you're going to get into Pilates. If somebody would have told me that months ago, I'd say, yeah, keep dreaming. I started, you know, one of my friends' daughters opened up a a studio in Burlington, Vermont, and she's doing some things on Instagram for free. And I started it, and I'm like, I really like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's making my body feel good, and it's
Right.
taking some of my aches and pains
Exactly.
and troubles from the day away. And so I ordered equipment for my home, and nothing fancy. I got
Mhm.
very plain things, because the nice thing about, Pilates, usually people think it's expensive equipment, which it could be. But, I use a chair for some things.
Mhm.
I used a blanket. I didn't even have an exercise mat. I used a blanket. This is part of those times where we have to also make do.
Yes.
So I don't want people to walk around. My goal is not to try to get people to walk around pretending to be happy,
Mhm.
but I want people to really remember, how are you going to use your energy, and the difference between suffering and struggling, and also give permission to people to laugh. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm I I watch, just to get my mind off of stuff. That's all okay.
Yes.
Short of hurting yourself, my motto right now is, it's okay. It's
It is,
okay.
and there is a guilt. Sometimes the people who are unaffected right now are feeling a little guilty about posting a wonderful meal that they made for their family or the new pie recipe that they tried. Um, but it's okay. It's okay to keep living. It's okay to uh, not be in dire straits. Um, and it's also okay to reach out and help people that might. It's okay to bake cookies for your neighborhood and
Mhm.
leave a little bag in the mailbox. It's
Yes.
okay to do these things, nice gestures. You don't have to sit there worrying about yourself and everyone else. One thing about empathy, we're being told to act empathetic, to people around us, but empathy can also be very detrimental, because you, instead of sympathizing with someone, when you empathize, you actually put yourself in their shoes and you absorb a lot of what they're going through. And if they're going through hell, you end up in taking it in to yourself, and you're not in a better place. You're not in a place where you can help others, you can help your family, because you're expending so much of that energy that you talk about, feeling sorry and sad and feeling people's pain, literally feeling their pain. So empathy, what we're being told is empathy really is about being sympathetic and kind and just saying, I know you're going through a hard time, but don't absorb it in your own body.
A-
And be an
And
empath.
that's very dangerous. And that's what I referred to before as vicarious trauma.
Right.
And and with all good intentions and trying to help people. And as a therapist myself, I work in a group practice, and we check in with each other all the time to make sure that we're holding space for ourselves and for each other,
Yes.
in addition to our clients,
Yeah.
because there is a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is when you kind of go down the rabbit hole with the person, and, oh, this is so terrible, and yes, this is just, and then you walk away, and your intention of giving and being present and again holding space for that person isn't actually what you did, and you didn't make the other person feel better.
Right.
People now really want to be empathized. And the most important tool, and it sounds oh so simple, but it's not, is listening.
Hmm.
Listening. People want to be heard.
Right. Yes. And it's
I, you,
frustrating to listen. I
yeah,
applaud you for how much you listen to people, because I'm a solution person, and when I just
I've noticed.
when I just listen, it's just so frustrating because I want to make it all better. I want to
Of
say,
course,
oh,
of
do
course.
this, and this. But you're right. A lot of times, just listening
Right.
is your purpose. That could be your purpose for today, is to just listen. You're going through horrible stuff yourself, but to open yourself up and just listen to what others might be going through might be your purpose for the day.
Right. And and one of the most important things along those lines is to maintain some kind of connections.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I get concerned about is people retreating.
Right.
And we're at the point now in this, well, who knows what point we're in, but what I'm experiencing right now as a therapist is, okay, so we're not in this is going to be 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then we're going to go back to our life.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
So people are,
That's so uncomfortable. That is super uncomfortable. People want answers. They want closure. They want direction. They want structure. And these are all things that are not there right now. So yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I believe it, and I say it to myself. It's okay to not be comfortable. It doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel good. You can be in a funk. It doesn't feel good.
Right.
But it's okay to feel however it is that you feel. We just want to make sure that you don't have to, swim to 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to make sure you stay in the pool and get in there, metaphorically speaking. We don't, walking on the street, you're wearing your masks, you can still nod to people.
Mm-hmm.
From 6 feet away, of course, but you can still nod to people. You can still, it's kind of like, I went for a walk the other day. Nobody's looking at each other.
Yeah, it is very strange. I feel like the social connection has completely just been wiped out. I posted something on Facebook as well. I was searching for these masks that have a viewfinder around the mouth where you can wear the mask. You can wear the mask and you can still see through it that someone is saying hello or smiling.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, and it is out there. They're out of stock. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely, this whole environment is taking away a lot of the interpersonal connections that people thrive on. Preemie babies thrive on touch.
Yes.
People crave relationships and intimacy.
And I want to tell you, it's not just preemie babies. We all need to be touched.
Yes, we need interaction. And if you're alone in your apartment, if you're alone, single or widowed or what have you, and you can't interact with your friends or date, to do that, it sucks.
Yeah. Well, I do have some clients that are single, and they're finding a way to properly, so they tell me, socially distant, which I would like to reframe that to say physically distant, because I don't like socially distant, but that's the word somebody picked out at the beginning of all this, but to physically distant and still meet new people and still acknowledge that this is something I want in my life. And I had a conversation with somebody this morning. Who knows where this is going to go, this new friendship that you're developing with this guy.
Right.
Just enjoy it for today.
Yes.
Take it.
And it is, there's a statistic that people who are doing these Zoom conversations and dating via the online conferencing or whatever we're doing, there's a lot more connection in the sense of getting to know that person, getting to know how they're handling this pandemic, getting to know a lot of the things that would take a long time to surface. Everyone usually has their best foot forward and a front on when they meet someone at a restaurant for the first time. But with this, conversations turn raw and real very quickly.
Absolutely.
And they will tell you their deepest, darkest fears. You will see how they handle this crisis. Like, I handle this very differently than someone else might be handling this. Someone might go into the slump and the doom and gloom. I might be in that slump and doom and gloom behind closed doors, or, if we don't have a paycheck, or if we don't have the PPE or the stimulus coming as well, you may not see that all on my face. but you will, if we're dating, like say you and I are on a date right now, you'll see how I handle crazy situations. And,
Mm.
and I may see on the other end a doom and gloom person, or, someone who just can't cope. And is that someone that you would want in your life to raise your children and to go through marital issues with and family issues with? So people do reveal themselves very quickly in these types of situations. So go, definitely explore, continue to date online, and filter through the front.
And I believe that each day, as we get more into this, in as safe as a way that we can, when you ask yourself in the morning, what's my purpose for today? Try to add even the littlest of things each day, because when people are throwing around the word normal, which I never really knew what that meant to begin with, but now it's the new normal. We don't know what that is either. So we don't have to buy into all the stuff that's being put out there.
Right.
We can connect. We can this is a time where people are really looking for that spiritual nourishment, like you were talking about before, where people are going to really reveal themselves.
Right.
And when you get to this, and we're all in a state of trauma to one degree or another. We all are. There's no question about it.
Yes.
Even a person, I speak to people who do not have to worry about money. They do not have to worry about, their health. They're able to, everything seems to be okay. They can't go into work, or they can work from home, and they've got a good setup, and they're still experiencing some form of trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. You know how many people I have spoken to who are just completely devastated that their gray roots are showing? Not me, because I'm enjoying my little gray sprinkles. But that's the biggest part of some people's day, the fact that they can't get a manicure, or they can't, get their hair dyed, or the cleaning lady can't come right now. But it's okay. It's okay to allow people to have that level of trauma if that's what they're going through.
Yes. Yep. I mean, we all live in different spaces. And if anything, I don't believe, when people say the silver lining, there's no silver lining to this. But let's all try and use this as a time to work on ourselves.
Yes.
And if we're scared, it's okay. Find people who are safe to talk to about it. Take care of ourselves, go out safely and walk in nature. Thankfully, I'm looking outside my window. The trees are beautiful. Take a walk outside. Take care of yourself.
Yes.
Be kind. And I feel like I didn't quite answer that one question about the people who are really struggling in terms of being in an abusive situation and it being that much more difficult to get out now, and people drinking and all that. Again, go outside. Try to change your senses. Try to ask yourself what's your purpose. Try to make this may be the time where you're going to find the strength, even though you don't feel it right now. Hold on to hope that maybe this is the thing that's going to get you to the next place that you haven't been able to get to.
Right. Yeah. And take anxiety out in a different way. Do not beat your spouse. Don't beat your children. I know it's so silly to say, but put a punching bag up in the basement and just start punching stuff and kicking stuff. Learn karate on YouTube. Do 400 push-ups if you feel that anxiety building inside of you. And you talk about go outside, go for a walk. Everyone's making fun of the fact go for a walk, but walking it's so good for your body.
It
but
is.
if you are in an abusive situation, if you are finding that you're drinking too much, hide the alcohol. Don't make it so easy for you yourself to access. Hop online to an AA meeting. I think they have online meetings.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely, they do. And we've been encouraging them. And the reality is that I wish it was, and I know that you're a full glass kind of gal, that your glass is full, half, I mean, full, not
Half
half
full,
empty, half
full,
full.
full, half full.
You know what I mean.
I do.
Um, the reality is, though, that it's not always easy, because in times like these, people naturally tend to become more of who they are and reach out to a therapist. There are a lot of free things.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of, I know I'm connected with the Lighthouse Retreat and Wellness Center
Mm-hmm.
in Croton, New York, and we are offering a lot of free things. We are working with people on a and this is not an advertisement. You can call wherever you want,
Mm-hmm.
but just make sure you get yourself help and have somebody to talk to.
Yes, actually, before we end this, or when we end this, I want you to send me just some of the basic national hotlines for, suicide or domestic violence, and if I can give you an assignment to do that, because it will post
That's just
that.
what I need, is something else to do, but I'll be happy to do it for you.
But we'll post that as well.
Okay.
Overeaters Anonymous, AA, domestic violence, and suicide prevention hotlines,
Yeah.
because people do need help and reach out, and it is very anonymous, and it's not going to solve your problems, but it'll help you cope. Just like you're not going to go and solve everyone's problem, but you are giving people tools to help them cope and endure and build resilience and structure. Take
Yes.
a whiteboard, write yourself a schedule, of whatever it is that you want to do. I know I'm going to go bake cookies for my 8 houses that live on the block, just because of this conversation, because I feel like I want to do something to make someone else's day a little better.
Yes, and if we all do one act of kindness,
It goes a long way.
it goes a long way. It
Yeah.
goes a long way. We are living in a society where we are just so used to things being very kind of antagonistic, and a lot of negativity right now
Mm-hmm.
around us, that only we can bring the positivity. It's not going to appear magically.
Right.
Magical thinking is not going to work right now. Let us really bring the positivity. And if that's your purpose for today, if your purpose for today is to get done with me and get me out of your hair and go bake your cookies for your neighbors, that's an awesome purpose for the day. Awesome.
Yeah. But that's exactly it. That's what everyone can have. Just one tiny purpose for the day. Before or after you take your walk, get dressed by 10 a.m. every morning. When you're in this limbo, I'll call it purgatory, because it really is. You don't know which direction things are going to head. You have to make sure you make it go in a different direction. You're on a sailboat, and your job is to steer the sail in the direction that's favorable. But yeah, put together a schedule of when you're going to walk, when you're going to get dressed, when you're this, when you're that, because people are needing to do that. They need
Right. And I would say and this is what I say to people, don't do it for the whole week. Do it for half a day, if that's what you could do. If you could do from 8 to 12 of what you're going to do that.
Yes.
And it's also okay at the same time, Jess, to say, I'm going to take an hour and lay on the couch and watch stupid TV.
Yeah.
That's really okay.
I'm going to do that too today.
There's your purpose.
I'm definitely going to do that today.
There's your purpose. So am I. Friday nights are my times where I take the longest baths in the world since this had started. The longest baths. In fact, last week I sent you a picture of it.
Yes. I'm not going to post that. It wasn't nudity. It was.
Well, I wasn't in there. I just posted, no, full disclosure, I only post my bubbles and the beautiful bathtub. I didn't send you anything else. So let's just put that out there.
Yes.
But,
it's good that you feel that you can. You're giving yourself permission. Even though people are struggling around you, you have to give yourself permission to be okay.
Yes. And it's okay to laugh, and it's okay to smile, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to feel however it is you feel.
Yep.
Please don't isolate yourself. Go online. There are plenty of free. Start listening to podcasts.
Yes, and don't commiserate. Commiserating with people is just you're sending yourself in a spiral. Do not talk about the pandemic with others. Don't talk about politics with others. Talk about favorable things, good conversations, not about how your husband is a piece of crap and your wife is doing all this stuff, or keep it positive.
Mm-hmm. And the one last thing I want to add is that, we're all feeling very vulnerable right now. And one of the references that I'm going to send you is, she is my guru for sure. Her name is Brene Brown. And she's written many, many books. She's a social worker, very down to earth. She has TED Talks. She has Netflix. She has all these books. She's always on something. Get on the computer and look her up. She talks about vulnerability and how to allow ourselves to feel vulnerable,
Okay.
especially in times like these. But she has such a positive take on it.
Yeah.
And she's very funny. She's very funny.
Okay. I will definitely. You'll send me that link too.
Yes, I will. I will send you her name. People can Google it because she's got lots of great things, but I'll send you one specific link on something she did last year on vulnerability, which I think I listened to at least once a month.
Okay. That would be great. And I hope this was helpful to a lot of other people as well. And, if they need to reach out to other people, I know there was a number that was circulated in our own community for anyone that's just looking to have a conversation with a licensed, social worker who they have staffed, at this number. I'm sure everyone's local community may have people like that.
Yes.
Just to have the conversation and get you moving in the right direction, even if you have to do it every day.
Right.
So I thank you for being there for people at this time. I know you've been there for them before this, and you'll be there for them after this. And being that you specialize in trauma, you gave good tips on not how to solve people's problems, but how to get them through, which is really, really where everything comes into play. But as people, we ourselves have to want it in order to take people's advice, professionals like you. So you have to want it. No one is going to wave a magic wand over you and poof, make everything all better. So please, people, take accountability for yourself, take responsibility for yourself, and listen to the advice that's being given to you and actually act on it. So
and find yourself a buddy. Find yourself an accountability buddy who you can say, you can call up and talk to, or Zoom with, or FaceTime with, and just don't stay isolated. That's the last thing we want, is for people to stay isolated.
Yes. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and we will post all the references. I will definitely be in touch with you.
Okay, and thanks, Jess, for doing this. I think this is important. People need to hear these things. And please know that most professionals in the field are also working really hard to accommodate people and do sliding fee scales and understand what the situation is. So
yes, along with those free resources, you can definitely still work
absolutely
for your own professional on an ongoing basis, for sure.
I will send those to you.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll chat with you after. Thanks so much.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
Hey guys, I know we touched on some sensitive topics here today with mental health and enduring this whole process, but I hope you were able to get something out of it. I did want to leave you with a few phone numbers, one being the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. The number is 800-273-8255. Another number is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That is 800-799-7233. And I will post a few websites that you can refer to for additional information and additional help and guidance, and just to reach out if you need someone to talk to. Don't be shy, just do it. We all kind of need an ear to listen to us, and sometimes you just have to speak this out in order to make sense of it, if it's possible. But Alcoholics Anonymous is aa.org. That's an easy one to remember. They're having virtual meetings, so that is convenient, and hopefully still, I'm sure it is still anonymous, but that can also help you through if you're drinking a little too much nowadays. Let's see, there's another website called childmind.org, childmind.org, and that's a great resource for parents to help their kids. It's also got great articles for parents themselves. So I took a look into that. That's pretty neat. And I will continue to post a couple more when I post this podcast and when I post the video as well. So please take a look at that, and feel free to use any resource whatsoever. Search out more resources if you need a different sort of specialization, or chatting or attention to your mental health, to your fitness, to your diet, anything that's going to improve your life right now. We have the time to address it, and you have the time to prioritize yourself. And so wish you well. And I'll still be here to continue bringing you interesting people that will help educate us, inform us, and help us grow. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.